This lesson is on perimeter. Perimeter literally means the measure around. So any object, we can determine what its perimeter is by picking a starting point and going all the way around that object. So, and that, it's not, you have to follow the lines. So when you have a figure like this one, what I like to do is give myself a starting point, and this would be the figure on page 10 in your textbook. I give myself a starting point. It's okay to make a tick mark there. And what you want to do is draw these out, especially when you're doing these as homework for yourself. You need to get physically involved in solving some of these problems. You need to go through the physical process, because that's really the way your mind works. It involves what you hear and what you see and what you touch. So you need to do all those. Don't just sit there and watch me do it, because then when you get to a problem, you're not going to be as good at it. You want to work your way through these. But I always give myself a tick mark, if you will, a place to start on the drawing. Then basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to go all the way around it. I'm going to go, I've got a 4 and I've got a 5 and I've got whatever this measurement is here, which it doesn't give me. I've got this measure here that I don't have, and this measure and this measure. So you're just literally taking every one of these line segments and going completely around. Now, a couple things to know about, and it's true for most textbooks, it's certainly true for this one. They did not anywhere give us a point showing that these were square, that these were 90-degree angles here, but they are. Anytime you have a representation in this book where it looks like these are 90-degree angles, 90-degree angles, 90-degree angles, 90-degree angles, you know that they are. Basically, these lines here are going to be parallel to this one down here, and these lines here are going to be parallel to the ones up top. Where does that help us? It helps us because before we can find the perimeter of this object, and the perimeter follows these little inlets here, you don't just go from here all the way across and around, you have to measure these little inlets as well. Pretend that every one of these numbers represents the number of steps. If it took me 9 steps to get from here to here, 15 to here, then I need to know how many steps it takes to get from here to here, don't I? But basically what I'm trying to tell you is that these lines are parallel. So this line, because this is a 90-degree angle, and this is a 90-degree angle, this line segment right here, and this line segment right here have to be the same length, don't they? They're two parallel lines. They start at the same point, they end at the same point, so we know that this section here is also a 9, because it's parallel to that line. Now, this one is a little more complicated, because this is a piece of a line, but you've got some other parts to it. But it's parallel to this line segment here that's 15, is it not? This line segment is 15. So if I take this line segment, this one right here, that would go to right about there, correct? And this line segment, which is a 3, would go to right about here. That one's a 3, that one's a 4. What is left? Well, the 4 and this segment must add up to 15, because those segments are parallel to this segment. That's why they're giving you the measure of this one, so that you can figure out what the measure of these are. Well, what number can I add to 4 and 3 that will add up to 15? 4 and 3 add up to 7. Only an 8 will add, that's not a very good 8. Only an 8 is, 8's the only number that I can add to the 4 and the 3 that would make it add up to 15. So this line segment here is 8. Now that I've determined the length of each of the little pieces, I can actually go through and find the perimeter of this entire figure. I'm going to start here, so I have a 4, a 5, an 8, a 3, oh, I'm sorry, I missed the 5. Sometimes it helps to mark them as you go so that you don't miss one. Then the 3, then the 9, which we found out that one, then the 15, and then this 9 over here. So I have all the parts. I started here, I have a 4, a 5, an 8, a 5, a 3, a 9, a 15, and another 9, and I'm back to my starting point. So if I add all of those up, then that's going to give me the perimeter of this figure. And I can do it by hand, or I can use the handy dandy calculator. I've got a 4 plus 5 plus 8 plus 5 plus 3 plus 9 plus 15 plus 9, enter, and the calculator says 58. And the book says 58. Now it says inches because it told us in the beginning that we're to find the perimeter of this figure. All angles are right angles. Dimensions are in inches. Now before we go on to part B, I want to pause and do a couple of practice problems. But if you look at the practice problem, so turn in your textbook to page 12, and at the bottom of the page you have practice A, B, and then the next page you have practice problem C. If you look at practice problem A, it's actually a word problem. Now in the text we didn't have a word problem, so we're going to do A kind of as a classroom activity, and then I'm going to have you stop and do B, and then I'm going to have you stop and do C, because those will give you practice on part A of this lesson. So let's look at practice problem A. The length of a rectangle is 10 centimeters, and the width of the rectangle is 5 centimeters. Find the perimeter of that rectangle. Now you don't have to draw to scale, but you're basically going to draw a rectangle, and it's telling us that the length, or one of the measurements of the sides, is 10 centimeters. And the width, which you would think, of course, that being the smaller of the two measurements, is 5 centimeters. So now we've drawn a rectangle. Now we know a rectangle is squared on the edges. So this length must also be 10, because this length was 10, and the angles are perpendicular or right angles. So this unit must be 10, and this one must also be 5. So now we've taken a word problem and we've turned it into an illustration, which obviously we can solve. Again, we want to pick a spot to start. It doesn't matter where. We have a 10, a 5, another 10, and another 5. And that gets us back to our starting point, so obviously that's where we stop. 5 plus 5 is 10, carry the 1, and 3 ones is 30. The perimeter of this figure is 30 units, and the word problem told us that the units was centimeters. So it's 30 centimeters in length is the perimeter. That's A.